Jesus taught his disciples, and I often say this to fundamentalist Christians. You remember Jesus saying, you guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That's not, I'm paraphrasing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave you. The Spirit is going to come upon you, and you are going to do greater works than I have ever done. Whoa, we can't have that happen, folks.
Yeah.
We can't allow that to happen. That's why Gnosticism was, drowned out, put out of existence, because the Gnostics taught that what Jesus taught was that you can have a direct relationship with God yourself, that you could know God and you could experience all that. Oh, we can't have people doing that, folks. Not at
That's
all.
not cool.
It's not going to build us a church, and it's not going to organize an empire, which is what Constantine wanted.
Right.
He
Religion
wanted
is just a set of rules to govern a population.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what he put together, and so many people, well, when you grow up that way, that's why infant baptism was important. If you're brainwashed from the time you're born that this is the way it is, then you won't listen to any of this other stuff.
Awakening isn't the end. It's what happens after. This is Wakened Earth.
Hello. Welcome to the Wakened Earth podcast. I'm Joseph Paul, your host. Today we have a very special guest, my friend, Mr. Reverend Dick Halloran. Dick is a spiritualist minister and a former county city circuit judge. How you doing today, Dick?
I'm doing phenomenal, especially connecting with you.
Yeah.
Your energy is just awesome, man.
Yeah. Good to see your face.
Thank you. Any day above ground is a good day.
You got that right.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for, right? Is to live this life.
Well, above and beyond ground. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's really why we're here. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have the human experience.
Yeah. And to actually create their own human experience. It absolutely amazes me how many people don't realize that they are creating, and it's partly because the way we raise everybody, we teach people they're a victim of circumstance. And then somewhere along the line, as you start waking up, you realized, oh, I'm not a victim. I'm responsible for a lot of this.
Oh, did I do that?
Yeah, did I want that to happen? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. Yeah. What can I share with you?
Well, so what we like to do when we start out is we like to talk about where you came from, how you grew up, what was your spiritual background.
Okay. Good. Well, I like to tell people I'm a recovering Catholic and a non-participating vegetarian. I like vegetarianism, but they got some great cheeseburgers here in Detroit. So concept is cool. But I grew up as a Catholic. I was an incredibly devout young Catholic boy. I grew up in Buffalo, New York, in a suburb called Kenmore, New York. St. John the Baptist Roman Catholic Church, founded by St. John Paul Newman. John Newman, not Paul Newman, St. John Newman.
Different guy.
And I loved it. I loved learning catechism. I loved memorizing all 400 questions and learning who made me. God made me. Why did God make me? God made me to know him, to love him, and serve him in this world and be happy with him in the next. And I like the certainty that I was brought up with Catholicism. The nuns, were good, although they taught me that every time I sinned, I was hammering the nails deeper into Jesus's body.
Hurting him a little more.
Yeah. And, but I liked it. I mean, I grew up very much, working in that context, loving people, helping people, working with people. That's what I was taught. And all through grammar school, that worked out really well. And so, as I was an altar boy, and so I wanted to be a priest. And my mother talked me out of going into the seminary. She wanted me to wait as she told me, my calling would still be there after high school if it was true.
Yeah.
And so a couple things happened along those lines. I was disappointed, but it was also I was a nerd. I used to get beat up because of I was a know-it-all, and so I went to a high school where there were no seniors, which was great. I was the senior class, first year freshman. It was Cardinal O'Hara High School in Tonawanda, New York. Freshman, then freshman, sophomore, freshman, sophomore. So I didn't have to suffer bullying along those lines. But instead, I suffered bullying from Catholicism without realizing it. I
Yeah.
learned that what I did every day, almost every day as a teenage boy, was a mortal sin and I was going to hell.
That's right. That's right.
And at that point, I thought, well, there's no way I can be a priest. And then I had a couple girlfriends in high school and I just thought, well, okay, no calling. It's gone.
Mom was right. Who
And
knew? Right.
that's right. Yeah. And so it worked out really well. I then went to Canisius College in Buffalo, New York. Canisius is a Jesuit school. It's now Canisius University. And it's so funny at the time, it was during the 60s, during the Vietnam War. I had to be in ROTC for the first 2 years as physical education. I remember when they asked me if I wanted to go into the advanced corps, which would mean I'd come out as a commissioned officer. I remember saying to myself, if I give my brain for 2 more years to the Army, I'm going to be as stupid as some of those officers who are running this program. So I didn't sign up and I figured I'd take my chances with the draft. What I hadn't realized was I'd given my mind over to the Jesuits.
That's a different kind of stupid.
Well, I'm not so sure stupid as much as it made me question stupidity. You know, they taught, well, first of all, I read the Bible then. In my religion classes, I had a minor in religion and a minor in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the New Testament for myself. And I was absolutely shocked. This is not the God I learned in grammar school, in high school, who punishes you. This is a God that loves you. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. And all of a sudden, my whole view of spiritualism changed. That it was loving one another, helping each other, supporting each other, working with each other as a community. And I loved that. I was part of a community. I sang in the Glee Club. I eventually became president of the Glee Club. I'd sung since I was a little kid. I was a boy soprano, which was one of the other things that, you know, when you're growing up
Yeah.
and everybody says after you've performed Oh Holy Night, oh, who was the nun who just sang that? And it's a 13-year-old boy, you know, you get a little sort of weird attention. But I remained a boy soprano all the way, almost through college. I studied at one point to be what's called a countertenor. And in fact, I was taking voice lessons in high school and talking about how things influence you. One of the teachers in high school, I wanted to be in the school play. And he says to me, "You don't still sing in that stupid high voice, do you?" And I said, "Oh, no, Father. No. You know, I'm just sang in it as a first tenor as opposed to a soprano." So a whole other career out the window. I could be touring Europe right now as a countertenor or retiring as a countertenor. So anyway, got to college and I learned of this concept of love, Christian love. And it was so new to me. It was not based on punishment. It was not based on negativity. It was based on how can you help and support each other. So I wound up going into law school, and that's a different story if we can get into, but I guess it ultimately is part of how Spirit led me in my life. But my spiritual development continued when we moved here for us to go to law school, to go to law school. Bonnie was going to teach at a Catholic high school. Bonnie is my wife. And we found a community in our neighborhood called the Living Worship Community. It was a group of Catholic families who gathered in each other's homes every Sunday, or about 30 or 40 families. And we were a religious community. And we designed the masses. We designed the services. We had a priest who would come and consecrate the bread and wine. So we'd have communion. And then every other week we'd have a celebration. So, and they were very active in anti-war stuff. They were very active in community outreach and programs and everything here. And so I was very much involved in that. And we would host them at our house, and it would be our turn to design the service and that kind of thing. And that continued. When we got tired of that after about 3 or 4 years, we all went over to a parish and became part of that parish, Our Lady Queen of Hope. And we were very active in all the things there until the Archdiocese of Detroit decided to close the parish because we didn't have a priest. And they wouldn't allow a nun to run the parish. This would have been in the probably mid to late 70s, early 80s, into 80s probably. And they closed the parish. And at that point, I said, any community that doesn't allow this to happen and allow it to, I don't want to be a part of. And I pretty much sort of withdrew from the Catholic Church. I didn't leave it, but that wasn't how I saw spiritual communities.
Right.
You know, that being directed from the top down. I don't mind having a leader, but I certainly don't want to be told how you can worship, how you can do things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that was probably a big pause for me. But at the same time, something else happened. And that is, do you mind me going on as a narrative, or do you want to jump in?
No,
you
go.
Okay.
You go ahead and tell us your story. That's what it's
Sure.
about.
Okay. So while I was at Our Lady Queen of Hope, I sang at another church in a choir. And there was somebody in the choir whose house was haunted. And it was like, what? And I got to know John, and he told me stories about lights and spirits in his house, noises that scared the hell out of his dogs walking on the 3rd floor. And I remember thinking, wow, this stuff happens, huh? You know, it's like I didn't question it. It's just like if you had traveled to another country and you told me what you experienced there, I wouldn't question it. I wouldn't say, oh, no, they don't eat bugs there. Nobody does that. No, they do in some places. And people experience stuff like this. So John's a real guy, you know, and he told me all these weird, strange things that happened in his house. Why would I say they can't possibly happen? What in hell is going on there, or in heaven, or wherever you want to go? So I started opening up beyond Catholicism. What's out there? I had studied in college. I'd studied Hinduism. I'd studied Buddhism. I'd studied Shintoism. I'd studied all kinds of religions. And now I was experiencing ghosts, or at least I knew somebody who did.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So about that time, it would be the mid 80s, early 80s, I was working for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they sent me to Williamsburg, Virginia for a class. And while I was there, I went out to dinner with one of the students and the wife was the student, and he was there at dinner. And so the three of us are there, and during dinner, I'm going, Bill, are you up in my brain? And he goes, yeah. I said, can you always do that with people, read their minds? And he goes, no, usually just plants and animals. Which to me was like, what? He worked for the, right, yeah. He worked for the Department of Agriculture, which made sense, but he could sense what plants and animals were feeling. And occasionally he could sense what humans were feeling. And it was like, holy smokes. I, again, never had thought that such a thing was possible. But here was another person right in front of me at dinner with his wife, and his wife's shaking her head. Oh, yeah, he's like that. Sometimes he gets scary. It's like, cool. So then the next time I was down there, I'd become friends with the librarian at the law library at the College of William and Mary. And I was telling him about my previous experience. He says, oh, well, there's a psychic down in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I saw her a while ago. You might want to go see her. So we set up. I was like on Monday or Tuesday. She had an opening on Thursday afternoon, and that's about an hour and a half drive from where Williamsburg is. So I was able to check into my class, skip the class after I dropped off my token, and then I drove there for a 4:00 reading with her. Her name was Joy Talley. She is now one of my guides. She's transitioned, and she's smiling right now. And I had this amazing reading. She didn't want to know my name. She didn't want to know anything. She'd given me a random number to identify myself. She asked me my birthday. And she says to me, she says, do you believe in reincarnation? And I said, at that point, I'm open to anything. She said, well, that's good, because you're an old soul and you're a very advanced soul. And then she started to describe what was going on in my life. And she was talking about me being single. And I had to stop her. I said, no, I'm married. I'm married with 2 kids. She says, no, you're not. You're wondering whether this is good for you or not. And I said, I have not told that to anybody. And she said, but that makes sense. Bonnie's been your mother in a previous life. And it was a very difficult life. You were a writer, and she was had arthritis, and you had to take care of her. And when she passed, you were very upset that you weren't able to do all the traveling you'd wanted to do in order to carry out your writing. And she says, and the problem you're having right now is because you've gotten back to treating her as your mother as opposed to your partner. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm not telling her any of this, oh my God, yeah, now that we have 2 kids, I call her mommy all the time. And I always ask for permission to do things. And she says to me, she says, now, what you need to do is you need to stop these dynamics, and you got to go back to being Bonnie and Dick. And she says, and that'll make everything work out great. And I was blown away. She had told me things about my job and all kinds of other stuff. And then I remembered thinking, well, I've heard about reincarnation, that if it's true, you have run into people over and over again. So I gave her the birth dates of 3 of my really good friends. She told me exactly what they were doing in their lives. In fact, one of them, she told me stuff that I didn't know until I called him that he was doing in his life. And I was blown away. And she gave me a cassette tape to take. So I called Bonnie that night, and I told her, I said, I have this tape of something that you're not going to believe. Please, when I bring it home, when we listen to it, listen to the whole thing and don't scoff at it. And then I had to go because I was meeting somebody for dinner. And the next morning, she calls me and she says, oh, I forgot to tell you something. I said, what? She says, well, yesterday when I was at home, this is my wife telling me now, she said, I was in the kitchen and I heard one of the kids call mommy. And then she went to check, and both of the kids were asleep for a nap. So she went back downstairs, and then she heard, mommy. And she said, I thought the voice sounded familiar, but there were no kids outside, and the kids were at a nap. And then she heard me say, Bonnie. And then she goes, okay, I do not know what's going on. The kids are asleep. Somebody's talking to me. I wonder if something's happened to Dick. And she went and checked the time, and she heard the voices between 4 and 4:30 while I was getting the reading. Yeah. Wow. And it was like when I played the tape, it blew both of us away. It was like, what the hell is going on here? What is this? What is this? So it made me start thinking about connections between all of us, and all of us being connected to something. We played the tape for a few of our neighbors and friends, and they thought we were crazy, so we stopped playing the tape for them.
Yeah.
Well, and then eventually we lost it. It's probably somewhere in the house we'll find when we move. But that was the early 80s. And one of the things that Joy had told me to do was to trust my intuition. And so I was having a ball with that. I came back and I would go new places with friends, and they'd say, well, I'd say, where are we supposed to go? And they said, we're supposed to go to this store in this mall. So fine, follow me. And I would just follow all over the place. I knew exactly where to go, what to do. It was great. Until this thought comes to me, quit your job. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Are you crazy?
Yeah, are you crazy? Well, what wound up happening was two things at the same time. This other thought came to me as I'm tired of being an attorney. I thought, as I had ideals from the 60s, I thought as an attorney for the federal government. I'd worked for the U.S. Army Tank Command and then for the Corps of Engineers. I thought I was representing taxpayers, and I really wasn't. I was helping engineers cover their asses for their mistakes.
Mhm.
And intuitively, this thought comes, you should run for judge, Dick. And I'm going, what? You should run for judge? And then I saw how it was done, and it's mostly based on effort. And there were 7 new judgeships in 1982 and 7 new judgeships in 1983. I'm sorry, 1981, 7, 1982, 7. I thought, well, hey, let's try it. So I filed to run in 81 along with 72 other people. Yeah, right. It was a little, but with no contacts, with no anything with anybody, I came in 24th. I needed to come in the top 14. So people contacted me in politics afterwards and said, are you going to run again? We'll support you. So the next time there were 7 vacancies, 32 people, and I came in 15th, which said to me, okay, I'm out of the running. I needed to be in the top 14 to go forward. But at least I tried. At least I tried. And I learned a lot. But my boss at the Corps of Engineers didn't like it and arranged for me to lose my position. That's how it ties in with quit your job. So I wouldn't do it voluntarily. Spirit figured out another way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And sure. So, and because I'd been with the federal government for so long, I had like 17 months of, 14 months of severance pay. So during that time, I found another career in sales and marketing in the investment business. And I did that for the next 8 years. Left with practice of law completely. But during that time, I learned how naive I was, how trusting I was. I like to tell people, when you're in a big financial business, raising millions of dollars, which is what I was doing for real estate, it's amazing how many people will tell you something and then turn around and screw you just so you don't make 40 grand, and they do. And so during those 8 years, I learned I was really good at communication. I was really good at learning a new profession. And I was really bad in understanding how much people were out to get you.
Yeah.
And by the end of the 8 years, I'd learned that. I'd learned who to trust and who not to trust. And then my buddy came back to me. He was a state legislator and said, Dick, do you want to be a judge? And I go, whoa, that was 8 years ago, Burton. And I said, no, I'm out of law. I'm just doing this. Then he came back to me a year later. He said, are you sure you don't want to be a judge? And I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, the governor owes me a favor, and I'd like him to appoint you as a district court judge in the city of Detroit. And I said, what's in it for you? And after he explained it to me that it really wasn't anything, he just eventually was thinking of running citywide, and he knew if I ran citywide, I'd have a network. So could he use the network? And I said, sure. So I said, okay, see if you can get me appointed. In the meantime, I was let go from the job I was at because the guy who was my boss wanted his buddy there. This was 1990. My wife and I had just come back with our kids from a trip to Egypt. And I'm at the airport and he tells me I've got, 30 days. Okay. So I'm going, well, Burton's going to get me appointed as a judge. Let me see if I can become a magistrate and wait. So that worked out. There was a magistrate's position open and I became a magistrate in 36th District Court in the city of Detroit. And then lo and behold, the Democratic governor got himself unelected, thanks to pissing off the Democrats in the city of Detroit. They didn't come out and vote for him. and a Republican was elected. So all promises were off. And I remember telling Burton, if I'm supposed to be a judge, it'll happen. If I'm not, I'll just stay as a magistrate. So for the next 2 years, I figured out how to communicate with Republicans because Burton was a Democrat. And in 1994, wow, that's a long time ago, I got appointed as a district judge in the city of Detroit. It was like, cool, this has all worked out. I'm absolutely shocked that this vision, that following my intuition, wow. Okay. Little did I know that wasn't over yet. Because somebody ran against me because I was a white male. And
how dare you?
I know, right? And labeling me as a Republican, even though everybody knew I was a Democrat. And with some wonderful campaigning on the morning of the election, they were able to convince 2,000 voters they shouldn't vote for me. I lost 91,000 to 89,000, which is a hell of a lot of voters. So, but all of a sudden I was out of a job. And so during that time, it was a real test of faith for me. Because I had a friend who was psychic at the time. I'd been doing some psychic meetings with her, and she says, I don't see anything happening for 17 months. And I'm going, oh, come on. I can manifest something. I can.
Yeah.
So I went around and I talked to attorneys. I talked to judges. I tried to get reappointed as a magistrate. And, this is all 1997 because the election had been in 1996. And nothing. Finally, I convinced some people that I could get a job as an attorney for the Michigan Liquor Control Commission and be an administrative law judge. And I started back again to build a career. And in March of 1997, I get a message, the governor wants to talk to me. I go, what the hell? Am I doing something wrong? And he goes, I got on the phone. He goes, Rick, only a few people are allowed to call me Rick. Rick, this is John Engler. Says, I'd like to appoint you to circuit court. What happened to you last year or 2 years ago was awful. And I need somebody to be on circuit court. And it was like, you got to be kidding me. This is going to continue. Sure enough, I moved up to the circuit court, served there for 18 years. I chose to do it in the family division. And because I'd gotten involved with personal protection orders, helped create them. And then there's more to the story, but that's how much I saw spirit working in my life. That
Just
vision of a judgeship that was a crazy idea in the 80s to my wife moved its way through all of that and somehow kept making it happen. And it was like, wow. If people don't understand that there's something working in their lives, they're missing how life works.
Yeah.
They're not listening. So I'll take a pause there.
So we're always heading in the path that we should be going.
Yes. And the beauty of being my age is I can look back on it and see that every time as I was going somewhere and I thought I was taking the road less traveled by, one of my favorite poems by Frost, no, it was the main road that I was supposed to be on. It was the main road. If I had not learned in business all the ways not to trust people, I would not have been as good a judge as I was.
Yeah.
Because I learned that people are out to use you, out to screw you, out to take advantage of you, out to lie to you, to lie to your face. And I'd never experienced that as a good Catholic boy. That's that
well,
doesn't
except for
happen.
the church.
Well, but that was never a lie. One of the things I've looked back on, Joe, is that sadly some people really are stuck in the myth. They're really, they can't let go of it. It's what they were told. And it may not even be what they experienced, but they hold on to what they were told because it gives them an identity. I think one of the problems for people with awakening, if we can talk about that, is awakening means you're taking responsibility for yourself.
Right.
It's much easier to say, I'm doing what God wants me to do, or
Yeah.
the Lord's made me do this, or whatever it is. And and you don't realize, no, you're creating, you're manifesting. Every one of your decisions brings forth the next level of your experience of life. If you think life is nothing but that's exactly what you'll get to experience. And we teach kids the truth. We sing to them, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream.
Yes.
And then we go, no, 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 that's not true. No, but it is. And kids who are brought up knowing that understand it and move a heck of a lot faster. But it's easier to cling on to a set of beliefs than it is to question your own experience. What did I just experience there? I experienced somebody who's seen ghosts. I experienced somebody who can read minds.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced somebody who caused my wife to hear voices. What is that connection? What's going on? And I was willing to explore it. Whereas
Well, it's all
most
about
people,
having your programming when you're growing up, the way that
yes.
this world programs us, and then having spirit come in, challenge that programming, change your mind, and have you to wake up to the idea that you are in charge
Right.
of your life. You are a creator. You
Correct.
are a piece of the creator. You're a mini creator on this
Yeah.
planet.
Correct. Yeah.
Creating your human experience.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing to accept from awakening, I have a sermon on this, is to get people to admit I am God.
That's hard because
That's
that was
really
blasphemy in
That's
the
right.
religious
Yeah.
programming, right?
That's correct. Totally. And
Yeah.
almost every one of them, except Buddhism. Buddhism helps understand that you are part of Atman, that you're
Yeah.
part of everything. But to say that you need anything else, no, you don't.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
that's what Christ taught. Like
that's
you were
exactly what
talking
he said.
about the
What he said, the
difference
kingdom of,
between what the Old Testament tells you and what the New Testament tells you. Well, those two books were never meant to be put together.
no. And the only
They're two
reason they were put
totally different
together
belief
was to sell
systems.
Christianity.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
I'll give you a brief history of that.
Well, I know.
there
Yeah.
was-
With the Council of
but-
Nicaea,
but more than that, they were jammed together because when you tried to teach, early Christians tried to talk about Jesus to people, they were
Mhm.
used to ancient religions, Mithras, all the things that went back centuries.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus only died 20, 30 years ago. How can that be a religion? No, but he's part of Judaism, which has hundreds of years
Yeah.
behind it. So
Yeah.
now do you want to hear about him? Oh, sure. Yeah, that's really cool. He's been around for a while, huh? So
Yeah.
the two books got mashed together. Then the Council of Nicaea decided what was in them.
Right.
But that's why Christianity has the Old Testament with it, because it was a selling point for the first 100 or 200 years to people in the Middle East who needed old religions, with some historic background.
Right. Right. The way that you were raised to believe is legitimate, but let's tweak it a little.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Let's
So that you
show
feel
what.
guilty all the time and you come to church and pay your taxes.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other story. I mean, Jesus taught his disciples, and I often say this to fundamentalist Christians. You remember Jesus saying, "You guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about." I'm paraphrasing.
Mhm.
I'm going to leave you. The Spirit is going to come upon you, and you are going to do greater works than I have ever done. Whoa, we can't have that happen, folks.
Yeah.
We can't allow that to happen. That's why Gnosticism was, drowned out and put out of existence, because the Gnostics taught that what Jesus taught was that you can have a direct relationship with God yourself. that you could know God and you could experience all that. No, we can't have people doing that, folks. Not at
that's
all.
not cool.
It's not going to build us a church, and it's not going to organize an empire, which is what Constantine wanted.
Right.
You know, he
religion is
wanted
just a set of rules to govern a population.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what he put together. And so many people, well, when you grow up that way, that's why infant baptism was important. If you're brainwashed from the time you're born that this is the way it is, then you won't listen to any of this other stuff.
Yeah.
When you have a friend
sticks.
who has ghosts, when you have a friend who has ghosts in their house, right, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Or that's the devil.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too. Yeah.
Which was the way that I was raised in the Protestant side of it was,
okay.
If it wasn't what we taught you was religion, then it was the devil.
Yes.
It was the works of Satan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, who created Satan? God.
Well, I mean, even
Lucifer.
if there really is,
even if it's true. Yeah.
I don't really think that there is a Satan. I think the Satan is
isn't.
just the yang side of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you do have to have darkness to have light and light to have darkness. So they do have to coexist.
And that's why we created this world here. So you could come and experience it.
Duality. Yes.
Yeah. So on the other side, it's all, fun and games, creative in a different ways. But here we make some of the hardest stuff because you forget who you are when you get here.
Yeah. Well, you have to.
You gotta, unless little kids, I've been watching a lot of stuff online. Little kids, forget what his name is. He collects stories of little kids who remember previous lives.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or the not mediums, but the psychologists who've done past life regressions, and stuff like that. And I know as a spiritualist, we don't talk about that kind of stuff. But to me, it makes so much sense that there's multiple realities in multiple levels, and that you and I are doing this interview on another thing and we're wearing different clothes. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But
I heard a theory today. I was watching a podcast, and it was a scientist was on, and he was talking about the math behind the fact that our universe is inside of a black hole.
That's cool. I like that.
And that every universe is inside of a black hole, and that the black holes within our universe hold universes.
That makes a lot of sense.
And he actually did the math to figure out how many solar masses was the size of our black hole that we were in.
Yeah.
And made the math work.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me, one of the things I've there's so much more I could talk about, but I experienced myself, I don't know, maybe in the 80s with a couple friends as a being of light. And I remember when we were in this space looking over and seeing my friend, and then I looked down at myself and I was just this golden body. He calls it Jubilation Day. He celebrates it every year. He's got it on his calendar. The day he discovered who he really was. And so for me, my whole awakening has been experiential. Things I've experienced either myself or through other people or with other people. And that's why you'll never hear me saying, I believe in this, because I don't believe in anything. I know this.
Yeah.
I've lived through it. I've lived to this experience. My mediumship is a different title for what I used to do. I trusted my intuition. All the years I was on the bench, I would just have these thoughts pop into my brain as to how to resolve things.
Yeah.
And it generally always worked out. And I used to say, well, when I was doing divorces, I'm talking to people's higher selves and everything. It's like, nope, I'm tapping into clairvoyance and mediumship. And so I'm very comfortable now saying I'm a medium. I'll sometimes lead into it with a joke by saying physically I'm an extra large, but spiritually I'm a medium, and do it that way.
When really it's the other way around, because our spiritual sides are so
Yeah, I know.
huge.
Are huge. Oh my God. I had that experience. Once. So I mentioned tangentially, I used to get together with a couple friends for years, and we would just send one of them on a psychic journey all the time just to see where he'd go. She was truly a medium, way more than I was back then. This is about 20, 30 years ago. And he worked with a group called the Kachina. Now in the Southwest, they're the big dolls and everything. And, but I work with them as spirits of the planet. But I remember asking them one time, could you give me a reading on my health? And they said, no. I said, what do you mean? I said,
Okay.
we're only here on the planet Earth. I said, yeah, so am I. They said, yeah, but your energy is as big as the solar system. And I'm going, yeah, right. Yeah, right. But then over a period of time, I came to realize it is. It is. And they were correct. And, but it was a lesson for me to understand how every single one of us is like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Single one of us is as powerful as Jesus, as Buddha, as any teacher has been.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the creator's the creator, and we're all
That's
pieces
correct.
of him, and just fractals. We're all
Yeah.
fractals.
that's all. One
Yeah.
of the things I stopped in my story and probably should continue so people can hear was the year I lost the election. So in 96, two things happened. My psychic friend said I would get a new position in 17 months. Sure enough, if you go November to March, that's 17 months. But during that time, a friend introduced me to a book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and then gave me tickets to go see Neil while he spoke out here in Warren, Michigan. And I remember raising my hand with a question. And I said, I want you to answer this question for me, Neil. I said, I'm currently without a job. I know things are going to work out. I just have this feeling something's going to work out. I don't know when, but I know it is. And every time I try to act on that, my wife says, no, we have to be careful. You can't do. And he says, oh, that's simple. Just divorce her. Of course, there was an
Easy.
audience, 1,200 people. Everybody laughed. He said, no. He said, this is an opportunity. Either it can go the way you declare it or the way she declares it. And I went back and I declared it that it's going to work out. And it did. I got a job shortly after that. And then shortly after that, I got appointed to a circuit court judge position. But that introduced me to Neil. And after I was on the bench, I wrote Neil a letter saying, hey, I'd like to know if you've met any other elected officials in your travels. So he invited about 60 of us out to his ranch home in Oregon. And we all met. We all talked. I won't go into who they were or where they were. And his group tried to get us to do things. And I said, no. We all have enough to do in our lives. I just wanted to know that there were other people involved in politics who know this.
Yeah.
And so we went our ways. And then about a year or two later, Neil started Humanity's Team, which is his worldwide organization. And they have coordinators in every state, every country, and what have you. And this would have been in the early 2000s. And so I wrote Neil and I said, hey, I noticed you don't have somebody for the state of Michigan. I'd love to be the coordinator for you. And he writes back, he says, no, I want you to be the legal advisor to the whole organization. Can you come out to California and meet all the people from the organization and the people from the states? So I did that and signed on as the legal advisor for Humanity's Team. And then 2 months later, found myself in Istanbul at the second worldwide conference for Humanity's Team. And that was astounding to meet people from around the world who were awake and who were awake in ways I could not even imagine.
Yeah.
Could sense things, could see things, could do things. receive messages from spirit as to how to make things do. And of course, I devoured all the books as Neil wrote them, as he channeled them, tranced them, however you want to say it, from spirit. And, that was a huge awakening for me. And I skipped one. When I was in the 90s, I was doing men's groups with Robert Bly, who wrote the book Iron John. And I was publisher of a men's journal called Wingspan, the Journal of the Male Spirit. We had a circulation of about 100,000 nationwide. And that was how I started to experience spirituality in groups outside of Catholicism, drumming circles,
Mm-hmm.
sitting around a campfire, chanting, doing physical activities that got you in touch with stuff. And it was called the Mythopoetic Men's Movement. If you Google that, you'll find stuff about it. And that was around for the 90s. And then the 2000s, I jumped over to Neil.
Mm-hmm.
And then mid 2000s, before the aughts, I just withdrew and then discovered spiritualism. And that all came about because my wife found a metaphysical church in South Carolina where we have a place. And the fun part about that for me was when I read the 9 principles, it's like, oh my God, this is exactly how I've experienced God.
Yeah.
God is infinite intelligence. Everything is part of it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And then the pastor there one day said, John, would you like to do messages? And she was looking at me and I looked behind and I realized, oh, that's who I am in a previous life, John. And I got up and I gave about 5 or 6 messages. And I had people come up to me and said, wow, how long have you been doing medium work? I said, 5 minutes. And then she asked me to do a service. And in her church, one person does the entire service, chairperson, messages, meditations, everything. And so I did one of those. And then she put me in touch with Reverend Terry Ryan from Camp Chesterfield. And then I found out how it's done at Camp Chesterfield, which broadened my concept of intuition to spirit guides. So I understand my joy guide, my doctor teacher, my alchemist, my healing guide, my protector, and that I work as a team, which makes so much more sense that we're all working together with all these different aspects of soul and of ourselves.
Yeah, this body is not a one person
No
vehicle.
No. I'd learned that as a kid that I had a guardian angel. I did not realize how active they all were until I've tapped into them all. And I think that's one of the things that awakening has helped me to understand is that everything has shown me a better way to serve humanity, to serve other people, to serve spirit.
Yeah.
That's part of the thing we're here for, is to make this a better place through creativity, through love.
Yeah.
All you need is love. Yeah. And that's pretty much the whole thing tied together now as to how I got to where I'm at. So,
which is so basically, what are you? You're not a judge anymore.
Correct.
You're not an attorney anymore.
Correct.
And from what I hear, you're now a reverend.
Correct.
So what are you doing with that?
Well, first of all, I feel like my mother was right. The calling was still there. It only took 50 more years to go and get into the right religion.
Mm-hmm. And you're allowed to be married.
Yes. Oh, yeah. In fact, my wife's very supportive. She is not a believer per se, but she certainly helps edit my sermons and stuff like that. And says, didn't you mention, you should have mentioned that principle in there, kind of thing. And so she's really good and supportive. But for me, what I'm liking now is that I'm an itinerant preacher. I have like 4 or 5 churches in the Detroit area that I speak at on a regular basis. I do message work at those churches. And then Spirit led me to get on the board about a year ago at camp. And I've brought my expertise to there and helping camp refocus itself on a spiritualist path and welcoming everybody to the IAOS. But so many people don't understand it. The IAOS is the umbrella organization. And Camp Chesterfield is like a monastery that they run. That's part of the IAOS. Just like the Het museum is part of it, the chapel, the cathedral, the bookstore, and that the big tent is the IAOS, but what the bylaws call for an avowed spiritualist, practicing spiritualists to live at camp. Because you've been at camp, you understand the energy there and you understand the dynamics there.
Yeah.
And it's a special place and a difficult place sometimes because of its requirements. So, but anyway, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm waiting now for Spirit to show me what's next. I've had mediums tell me, so it sounds exciting. I wish they'd give me some more definition, but we'll see what it is, and I'm just open to Spirit. One of the messages I got about 4 or 5 months ago was, Dick, you got to understand, and you got to get people to understand that they are God. Not
that's
a
not
spark.
easy.
That's not easy. It's really difficult. I said, let me give you a practice. Joe, try this. Next time you hear somebody say, wow, thank God that happened, say, you're welcome. And see how they react and see how you internally react
Yeah.
to acknowledging that. It's
My method of that is when someone goes, Jesus, I go, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. Yeah, no.
Can I help you?
No, that's exactly. But that's one of the message. That's the biggest message. I was told I was going to get a huge download, and it came down, and that was it. It's like, Dick, your job is to help people understand they are God. And it's like, come on, give me something easy to do.
Yeah, that's
like feed the hungry or something. No,
man.
No.
Yeah, that's not something that the ruling class would want people to understand.
No, I know. And I'm going, okay, I'm going to be around another 20 years, I think. All right, I'll work on that. But that's really, well, you know that, Joseph. Like you said, when you answer that way when somebody says Jesus, that's everybody has been raised to think that God is outside of themselves, or that we're made in the image of God.
But then at the same time, they teach you to invite Jesus into your heart. Like that was the whole thing. Like in the, I don't know about Catholics because I wasn't raised in that, but in the Protestant thing, that was the moment you got saved, was when you invited Jesus into your heart to live.
Correct.
But then they still want you to treat him like he's something separate.
Correct. I remember doing that in college when I read that concept. Oh, sure, come on, get in there. And all of a sudden I remember feeling this love energy, and it's like, what? Well, I realized back then it was not inviting something in, it was opening something up.
Yeah.
That something that was there all along, buried, that I had forgotten. And I just realized this is why I'm doing this podcast. Remind me of that. That's what I signed on to do.
Yeah, you better get busy.
Well, I guarantee Spirit's going to bring it to me to do it.
Let me ask you a question, Dick.
Sure.
So if someone wanted to reach out to you to get that done and help you to commit, to fulfill your purpose that you've been put here for, how would they do that?
They could contact. No, my email is hewhodreams@gmail.com.
Okay.
And anybody who's listening to this, I'll be more than happy to trust that Spirit is guiding you and get in touch with me. And I've used He Who Dreams as my screen name since the 1990s. And that came from a play I saw, which we don't have enough time for me to go into the play, but it's a science fiction play called Warp 1, Warp 2, and Warp 3 out of Chicago.
Love science fiction, man.
So
I'm a science
He Who
fiction
Dreams
addict.
at gmail.com.
He Who Dreams at gmail.com. We'll be sure to have that in the show notes. People will be able to click on it. One of the things that we do here at the end of the conversation is we have some quick fire questions.
Please.
That we ask. So are you ready for those?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. If listeners could walk away with one grounded takeaway from your story, what would it be?
Find the spirit within yourself.
Well, that tracks. Yeah. Awakening is not
Impossible.
Growth costs.
Ego.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I used to believe.
That I was a sinner.
Now I understand.
That I am God.
Well, Dick, this has been a fantastic conversation. It's been good getting to know your story growing up.
Thank you.
Quite a life you've led, my brother.
Oh yeah, it's been fun actually. Fun and interesting, and much better than some of the other ones I'm sure I had. But yeah, but
yes.
this is Joseph. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for this
my
opportunity.
pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on and being a part of this. This little experiment we got going on here called the Wakened Earth
continued
podcast.
Success with getting people to allow you to unveil who we are.
Yeah,
because that's what you're doing.
Yeah. We want to help people through the awakening. People with questions that come in and be like, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? Is there anybody else out there that feels this way? And there definitely is. No matter how you're feeling, there are people out there that feel exactly the same way.
Well, I think one of the most startling things for people is when they lose a loved one, like a grandparent or something. And on the night that their grandparent passes, their grandparent shows up in their house or in their bedroom.
That'll do it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there who've experienced that, who don't share that with anybody because it sounds so weird, but it's the way it works.
It is. And that's what mediumship helps with as well.
Yes, it is.
Yes. All right, Dick. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you so much for this, and keep the music going.
Will do, brother. You have a great day.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you for joining me on Wakened Earth. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need it. A special thank you to our guests for sharing their story and wisdom today. You can find links to connect with them in the show notes. Remember, we're not escaping the human experience. We're waking up inside it. Until next time, I'm Joseph Paul. Be present, stay curious, and keep awakening. Peace.